and welcome to another episode of Murder Dictionary Podcast. My name is Brianna, and that is Kelly.
Hey.
Before we get started, we just wanted to remind you of a couple things. First of all, if you're on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, we have one of each of those, so you should go check it out. We've got memes, we've got episode information, Patreon and merch information. So if you want to stay updated, join Murder Dictionary Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. If you want access to some bonus episodes as well as a little bit of merch, you can become a patron on Patreon. We have a few new Patreon supporters this week. So we wanted to say thank you to Brittany, A. Janowski, Mallory, and Aaron.
Okay, let's go through it again. We got Brittany, A. Jimanowskis.
The nasty.
Okay, so the nasty.
Mallory.
And
Aaron.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much for your support on Patreon. Again, we have some bonus episodes and a little bit of merch that we'll send out to you. So keep an eye out for that. And we announce those over on our social media. So we've got, everybody sent us pictures recently of their stickers and buttons and condoms and shit. So thank you so much for tagging us in those and sending us pictures.
Yeah, it's super cool.
We love it.
Did you know we're helping with control overpopulation by sending out condoms?
Yeah. Oh, totally.
The spread of STDs.
It's our mission.
Doing God's work.
So in our description and show notes will be the link to all of those: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Patreon, as well as the link to get merch as far as t-shirts and iPhone cases and all sorts of shit. Mugs. Bathroom towels.
Yeah, I looked at all of it.
Housewares.
Pretty cool. I'm going to have to buy everything.
Right,
so
one of each.
I need new housewares.
So if you're interested in some merch, the link will be there, and our merch can be found on Threadless. So it's basically threadless.murderdictionarypodcast. Cool?
Sounds good.
And then the other things that will be in the show notes is timestamps. So if there's particular parts of the story that are a little bit gruesome, we want to point those out for you. So if you want to skip them, you can. So there's timestamps in there, as well as links to research if you want to read further on the story tonight, and some links to resources for domestic violence and mental health resources and, anti-bullying, stuff like that. CPS, a bunch of links. So if you want to follow up and get some help for yourself or someone else, there's links in there. And I think that's pretty much it.
Story time?
We're good to get started on the story.
Cool. It's Halloween time. So.
It is Halloween, so we've got a new letter.
Awesome.
And a new bonus episode coming out. Shh.
Yes.
So we're starting T, and we're going to do twins.
Ooh.
So this is letter T, twins, part 1. And we're going to talk about the Kray twins with a K.
Kray.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. They really chill, just
super chill.
People.
There's going to be no murder in this story at all. It's just a twist for Halloween.
Death by hugs.
Snuggle smothers.
I want to go out, for sure.
So the Krays are from the UK. So we are talking about the Kray twins. Charles David Kray was a scrap gold and used clothing dealer in Hoxton, East London.
Like a thrift store?
Yeah, it sounds like it. That sounds like the life as far as I'm concerned.
Selling dirty clothes?
Yeah. Just,
totally.
That smell of old books, but it's actually a sweater.
Oh, you mean like mites? Like just fucking dust and mites? You're disgusting.
You know it.
I like flowers, weed,
old
scented
books.
Candles, anything.
Just like old books.
God damn.
He married Violet Annie Lee in the mid-1920s. Because everyone loves a guy that smells like old books, just like I said.
I think everyone smelled like that in the 20s, right?
That's true. Because books were new.
And cigarettes.
So they had a son. Their first son was Charles Jr., who was born in 1927. And then a daughter born in 1929, who actually passed away when she was just an infant.
Charlene?
Yeah, pretty much. Actually, I don't know what her
Aw,
name was. Yeah. It seems like they were on a pattern. Let's
that
just name
sucks.
everybody a variation of Charles or Charlie.
Yeah.
So
Aw.
then Violet gave birth to twins, Ronnie and Reggie, who were born on the 24th of October in 1933.
Little sister's birthday. Cute.
So they were identical twins,
Mm-hmm.
and Reggie was born 10 minutes before Ronnie. When they were only 3 years old, they contracted diphtheria, which I'm not really certain, but I'm just relying on the fact that you were always the medical expert here. Do you know what diphtheria is?
Is it where they put like, the skull packets in their mouth or like
I
dip?
was thinking it was like Roger Rabbit, where they're like, dip! And just everybody starts melting.
Just dipping babies and stuff? Yeah.
Yeah. I was really counting on you to know what everything is medically.
I have a handy dandy Google machine.
Well, anyway, they had diphtheria. It was, I guess, something pretty serious. I feel like you might break something.
Continue. No, I'm very careful. How do you
No,
spell-
I meant yourself, not even the
Oh.
equipment. Like the way you were straining to do your Pilates to grab your phone.
I'm so limber. It's ridiculous. A serious infection of the nose and throat that's easily preventable by a vaccine.
Well, maybe that vaccine didn't exist.
Oh, in the 20s. Yeah.
Yeah,
Duh.
possibly. I'm just assuming that's the case if they
Oh,
let
it
it
looks-
really progress.
Wikipedia just hits you with a fucked up picture.
So they had diphtheria. We said it sounded like a extreme cold or kind
Yeah.
of like pneumonia or something.
Like
yeah?
a sore throat, you get fever, barky cough.
Oh,
Just kind of cute.
that's adorable.
I want any
so
type of cough.
The 3-year-olds turned into puppies.
Yeah,
basically.
I don't want a whooping cough. I want a barking.
So apparently, Reggie, he recovered pretty quickly. But Ronnie actually almost died from diphtheria when they contracted it. But he eventually recovered. It just took him longer. As they got older, they became pretty active, though. They were really tough, scrappy kids. So even though they had been really sickly when they were super young, they turned it all around. They were very physical, very active, just rowdy boys.
Like how the fat kids always turn out to be like super buff gym freaks.
Yeah.
No?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. Everybody at CrossFit right now used to be fat.
Oh, it used to be like 400 pounds.
Yeah. Yeah. Good for them.
Yeah.
In 1942, when they were 9, the Kray twins were fighting each other, and Ronnie almost died from a head injury inflicted by Reggie.
I can feel that. Sometimes I wanted to kill my brothers. Right?
Yeah, like yesterday.
Yeah.
Their family relocated to Bethnal Green when they were just children. Their grandfather lived in that area, and he was quite well known. He was referred to as Mad Jimmy, a.k.a. Jimmy Cannonball.
Fuck yeah.
And he was famous for his incredible skill as a boxer and a bar fighter, as well as being one of the neighborhood drunks.
I'm not going to go to school anymore. I want to do that.
Yeah, I ain't mad at that.
Cannonball Jimmy.
At the time, the neighborhood they lived in was considered kind of a rough area. So they were scrappy kids coming into this new area, and it kind of magnified those impulses, we could say.
Yeah, you got to be tough
Yes.
around tough kids.
Oh, yeah. Especially when you're the Cannonball's grandkids. Their street had a really high crime rate, a lot of gambling dens, there were brothels, and very seedy pubs. At an early age, the twins were quite comfortable and adept at navigating like all the criminal element that was in the area, the unsavory characters, and whatever underworld existed. So none of the drunkenness or, prostitution or anything like that really fazed them.
Is this Goodfellas?
Right? It's gonna get that way. That's for sure. When they were young, the boys were kind of mama's boys, apparently, and they seemed to have somewhat of a soft side. They were timid. They even wrote poetry as children. People recall that Ronnie was even the victim of bullying at school, and that other kids made fun of his appearance, in particular, his eyebrows. Like he had big bushy eyebrows or something.
Do you think all of his poetry was about how his eyebrows aren't that bushy?
They were just like Instagram brows kind of poetry. Just like, my brow's so on fleek. I can't walk down the street.
I get bothered week to week. Some people think I'm meek.
But I'm really unique. The brow haiku.
My girlfriend's name is Monique.
She a freak-a-leak. So, yeah, he was bullied and he dealt with it by writing
Great
eyebrow poetry.
Yeah, so good.
So they were extremely close with their Aunt Rose, and when Ronnie told her that he was being bullied, she went to the school and confronted the kids and got them to leave Ronnie alone.
Oh, that
Which
worked?
I don't necessarily believe, but that's what,
She
that's
pulled
what
a knife on
historians
those kids.
say. But she must have severely threatened them, or they just don't want to include that the kids retaliated against him.
She didn't just give him a stern talking to.
No.
Seriously, guys.
So when Aunt Rose died, people recall that there was somewhat of a shift for the twins, especially for Ronnie, since they were so close. The Kray twins began dabbling in some petty crime, causing some trouble around the neighborhood, and just, being a little bit more rowdy.
Blowing off some steam.
Yeah. They were previously pretty similar up until this point, but it kind of marked a divergence between the twins. Their teens, Reggie emerged as more humorous, more charming, and he was kind of seen as more smooth. And Ronnie became more aggressive, he was unpredictable, and he seemed a little bit unstable.
You think it has to do with their names? Because I could have guessed that. Without you telling me, which one would have been bad and good, I was like, Reggie's the coolest guy ever.
Right? He's chill.
He's
Reggies
smooth.
are always chill.
Reggies are always chill, yeah.
That's true. Each brother had his own strengths, with Reggie being known for his charm and brains, while Ronnie was known more for being really strong-willed and fearless and stuff like that.
Jersey
so even
Shore.
though,
Yeah.
exactly, yes, run. So even though those were they had some negative characteristics, they also kind of were seen as strong for those elements that they had, and together, of course, they were kind of the package deal. They could get in and out of any situation.
Yeah. Unbeatable, unstoppable.
Yes.
Cool.
They were inspired by their grandfather to take up boxing when they were in their teens. Reggie was quite skilled, and Ronnie was strong and, again, unpredictable, but definitely not as skilled, They were known to fight often throughout their whole lives, fight each other. And when they took up boxing, the violence kind of kicked up a notch. So they would seriously brawl.
No way.
Yeah. Makes you wish you boxed in your teens or what?
We're gonna box. We're going to take a boxing class after this.
So sibling rivalry when they started boxing kind of became a good thing. Even though they did fight a lot, it actually pushed them to better themselves and be competitive in a positive way.
Awesome.
So if one of them won a competition, the other one wanted to, get a good score and win for himself, So it's like, okay, I've got X amount of wins, now you've got X amount of wins, and they kept going back and forth.
Motivation.
Exactly. So they both had a little bit of success in the boxing community. Reggie won several tournaments, including the 1948 Hackney Schoolboy Boxing Championship.
Hackney?
Yep.
Okay, all right.
I hope that I said that right. I wonder if it was a different word and then got auto corrected or some bullshit.
It's just Halloween, so I'm like, this is a place called Hackney. It's spooky.
Right? They are said to have never lost a match and been undefeated for a long period of time. Reggie was on the path to turning professional, but because he was kind of doing this petty crime around the neighborhood, it often got in the way of him actually being a serious, athlete. Outside the boxing ring, Reggie often used what's called a cigarette punch when dealing with other criminals or other people that he disagreed with.
I've done that. I don't even know what it is, but I'm pretty sure I know what it is.
Oh, I guarantee you've done it.
I've done it.
I've seen you get real sneaky. So this one's a good one. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You basically offer a victim a cigarette, make them feel real comfortable, offer to light it for them, and then just surprise them by punching them on the jaw.
I was wrong.
Oh, I've seen you clothesline someone.
I thought you had a cigarette in your hand.
Oh.
Then punch them.
I'm sure you've done that a lot accidentally when you're drunk.
Only at once.
that you remember.
Accidentally is different. This is fully intentional.
All right, I'll give you that one.
Yeah. Yay, Universal Studios.
In their mid-teens, Ronnie started telling people that he was gay or bisexual. In fact, Ronnie was known as the gay one of the twins because he was really outspoken about it. However, both of them were actually bisexual and had relationships with people of both genders throughout their life. Ronnie was, of course, the first one to come out in his mid-teens, and the reason for that was he kind of fell for this guy in the area named Willie, who was a card shark and kind of a local hustler. When a friend told Willie that Ronnie had a crush on him, he was really upset by it and refused to be alone with Ronnie after that.
Ah.
But it's kind of unclear if it's due to homophobia, which I'm sure was somewhat of an element. It's, a long time ago. Or if it was the result of also being somewhat afraid of Ronnie because he was known as being so volatile and really unpredictable. A lot of the historians will just say that it's because of that. Like, this kid Willie didn't really ever know what Ronnie was going to do. So it's one thing to be around a gay kid that likes you. It's another thing to be around a kid that doesn't have good boundaries and social skills, you know? So it sounded like he was a little bit concerned because of that. But you never know. A lot of straight dudes are like, oh, I don't know. I don't want him to hit on me. It's like, you never know it was just some stupid shit like that.
Maybe they already fucked and he just didn't like him and didn't want to call him back.
Could be. You never know.
He's just like, no, but I don't like you. We only fucked once. Just tell him to stop. I'm not going to be alone with him.
So the Kray twins' mother, Violet, accepted that her son was homosexual. But their father and their older brother, Charlie, were really upset. Since they were not close with their father, they kind of didn't care. It didn't matter to them. But they were really close to their brother, so he really tried to explain himself to Charlie and make Charlie more comfortable with his sexuality. Ronnie said that he'd been gay for years, and nobody could change him. He wouldn't let people try to change him, and people just kind of needed to adapt and get used to it.
This is amazing for the times.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm really impressed. Reggie, on the other hand, would flip-flop between confirming his bisexuality and denying it, but ultimately there's people that he's known to have hooked up with. The Kray twins started a gang called The Firm and became known as local criminals and gangsters.
You can't come out saying you're gay and then name your gang The Firm.
Yeah, there's something, I don't know. I really don't like that name.
I just don't like The Firm. It sounds like lawyers or it sounds like dicks.
Yeah, I feel
Same
like he's
thing.
just talking about his cock.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, it's The Firm.
Mm-hmm. Always firm.
If anyone politely objected or seemed uncomfortable with his sexuality, Ron just kind of smiled at them and told them that they didn't know what they were missing. And he kind of tried to like use humor and diffuse situations and whatever. And the result is everyone of the members of the firm were really comfortable with his sexuality. Nobody really had a problem with it. Of course, there was people in other gangs or people in the general public that were not, you know?
Yeah.
So
remember in Kill Bill when everyone was mad that Lucy Liu was a woman and she was the head of like the Yakuza
Yes.
or whatever, and then she chopped that motherfucker's head off?
he's basically the same.
Okay, cool.
That was pretty much like the next thing I was getting to because I mean, no, it's just like, yeah, if you were nice about it and just kind of basically didn't get it,
Yeah.
he'd be cool with you and just be like, well, it is the way it is. That's my life. And if they weren't and they were a little bit rude or even confrontational about it, I mean, he would just beat the shit out of him. You know, like he was a boxer. So, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And, you know, other people tried to keep him in check. You know, you can't beat up everyone. There's a lot of homophobia everywhere.
Totally.
But really, if he had a problem and someone was clearly intolerant of him, then they would get his wrath.
Nice.
Yeah. I wish I could do that.
We gotta change our lives, dude. Let's just beat up everyone. You don't like Sublime? Boom.
In 1952, the twins were conscripted for the national service, and they were ordered to report for Army duty in 1952.
I'm really stupid. What was the C word you used?
Conscripted?
What's that?
My
I'm
understanding
dumb.
is it's kind of similar to being drafted.
Okay.
Like you have to show up for service. So
Okay.
instead of volunteering to serve an army, then you're basically just picked.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. So they showed up, but attempted to leave after only a few minutes. An officer in charge tried to stop them, but Ronnie punched him on the chin, leaving the officer seriously injured. And then the Krays just left, walked out, and walked all the way back home.
They just saw a big sign that said no gays.
Right? We're asking and we're telling. Nope, I'm out. Just a giant no butt sex sign. They were detained after this because the next morning, a bunch of officers, they came prepared, showed up at their house and took them into custody. So they were kept at the Tower of London, and they were among some of the last prisoners that were actually held at the Tower of London before it was no longer used as a prison. While they were serving time, they tried to dominate the whole yard and exercise area and terrorize pretty much anyone in that jail, prisoners or officers. They threw tantrums, emptied their latrine buckets over some of the corrections officers.
That's a piss bucket, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Latrine equals lots of piss. They dumped hot tea on one of the guards. They handcuffed another guard to the cell bars using a pair of stolen handcuffs.
What?
And they also set their beds on fire.
I'll take any of those over tea being spilled on me. Honestly, that sucks.
A burn is the worst.
It really is.
And every time you do anything, it just reminds you, it makes you angry.
You wash your hands, or
Yes.
I'll get
the
a
wind
new bed.
blows.
I can wash pee off. Just fucking burn last.
Yeah. That is definitely the worst. So their behavior in prison was so bad that they both received dishonorable discharges from the army, seemingly just to kind of get them out of custody because they didn't want the staff to have to keep dealing with them. That's definitely going to be my tactic for anything anymore.
Hot tea?
If I just want out of a situation, I'm going to annoy the shit out of someone until they let me out off the hook, you know?
You just tickle all the guards. Blow in their ears.
Repeat everything they said.
Wet loogies.
Wet loogies.
Indian burns.
No. So their criminal records and the dishonorable discharge from the army officially ended their boxing careers. That was it.
What? You can't box?
I know, but that's kind of surprising, but that's what happened. You had to be kind of a clean cut, clean record kind of guy to be a boxer, I guess, back in the day.
Okay, well, I guess that's why Muhammad
Or
Ali
not
was
get
such a
caught, basically.
True.
Again. So since they couldn't box anymore, they turned their focus to making the firm a more successful and lucrative gang. They bought a rundown club and they started several protection rackets. And over the next few years, they took on hijacking, armed robbery, and arson.
They should have just let him box.
Right?
Seriously.
Yeah, it would have kept them off the streets. Then, with the money that they made from their criminal activities, they would basically buy more clubs, more businesses, and properties so that they could put the money into legit places and then keep doing the criminal stuff on the side, buy more businesses, like a whole circle of life, basically.
These guys are so smart.
Circle of mob life.
We should do the same thing with stripping.
Oh, yeah. We just strip, make money, grow weed, and then make money, strip.
Sephora,
Is this a circle?
Sephora.
Oh, yeah, Sephora should be in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Starbucks. No, Coffee Bean. Sephora. Dispensary, and then buy a couple properties.
Yeah. Properties last. Definitely Sephora first. So the firm soon emerged as one of the most prominent and successful gangs in the area because they kept feeding money back into it. And the Kray Twins became really notorious. Although they were criminals, many people in the area actually really liked them. People believed that the twins were only inflicting harm on other criminals. So really everybody who wasn't a criminal was safe, and they never really hurt anyone in the community. The Krays offered protection from rival mobsters that were apparently more violent than them. Mm-hmm. A lot of people just felt more safe in their homes or in their neighborhoods once the Krays took over the area. They were also, of course, really charming, and they often gave back to the community. So if local people had a problem, ran into hard times, they went to the Krays for help. They often gave out loans and stuff like that, or just flat out gave money. The flip side of that is that if there was a wedding or a new baby or anything to celebrate, they also showed up with gifts and food and whatever. They always were giving out cash, little things here and there, and it kept people in the neighborhood happy.
I love these guys so far.
Yeah, so
Pretty
far.
cool.
So they were kind of seen as local Robin Hood types, and less as dangerous gangsters. If you were a criminal, they were a gangster to you. If you were just an average Joe, then they were kind of there to help out when you
Yeah.
needed something. But in reality, of course, they were pretty violent and evil when they needed to
Oh,
be.
okay.
So although they were basically the heads of the gang, they were the bosses, they had a very hands-on approach to handling their business. They often showed up to do the dirty work themselves, whereas a lot of other gangsters would have some of the lower members of the gang do the worst jobs or the cleanups or the actual like inflicting harm on someone. The Kray twins actually showed up and did everything.
Hey, you get rid of snitches. Straight up, dude. If you want something done right.
Just do it yourself.
Seriously. God damn, these guys are cool. Fuck.
So being directly involved in the firm's criminal activity landed Ronnie behind bars for 18 months in 1950.
Kelly Kray.
And he's bi, which is awesome.
Amazing. So
like this is
2017.
really perfect. I never thought about how this is your soulmate. Since of course they were hands-on, it made it really much easier for them to get caught doing things. That's the problem. Is a lot of times the bosses aren't involved for the specific reason of they'll always stay out of jail.
Yeah. Fall guy.
Yes, exactly. So this kind of backfired when they started getting some sentences, getting a record. Ronnie was convicted of running a protection racket, related threats, and inflicting grievous bodily harm.
Wait, a protection racket is illegal? That sounds good. Is that what,
I want to be protected.
I don't get it. Sounds like that costs extra money.
So with Ronnie away, things were slightly less violent because, of course, he was the more volatile twin. And Reggie, he focused more on the legit businesses, and he focused on making legitimate money. While in prison, Ronnie was found insane and sent to Broadmoor Psychiatric Hospital.
It's because he was bi. That's what they mean by
Pretty
insane.
much, right?
I'm not even kidding. I bet you it was something ridiculous.
I'm totally
like that.
laughing because I'm uncomfortable, but yes.
It's
yeah, that's
probably
something that
weird.
could legit
Like,
happen. The
Nothing
thing is,
sounded insane so far.
the thing is, it's not.
It's not? Damn.
He was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia.
Really?
And put on meds.
Nothing
yes.
up till now has led me to think he's schizophrenic.
But there's a lot of people that, of course, were sent to that sort of hospital because just simply their sexuality or gender or something to that effect. So yes, that's definitely a good theory. However, later on, it kind of becomes more pronounced that he can't really cope with his mental illness.
Yeah. Like, most of the time it's like voices and stuff like that. It just didn't seem like. That's
yeah,
crazy.
there's not a lot of, maybe because he probably didn't keep a record himself or a diary or anything, there's no account of that. However, his behavior from childhood was known to be really erratic, volatile, unpredictable, violent, all that. So, yeah, he was clearly struggling with something very early on.
I thought he was just a man.
True story.
Jokes to all our male listeners. You guys are so sensitive.
So soon after he arrived at Broadmoor, one of the firm's associates paid a visit to Ronnie's psychiatrist. The gangster convinced the doctor to say that Ronnie has been cured and is ready to return to society.
You can cure schizophrenia?
Yeah, it's just gone. Bye. So soon after, Ronnie was released from the facility. Ronnie left with psych meds, but by all accounts, he was really inconsistent with taking his pills.
It's like birth control.
Yeah, right? So after Ronnie's return, the twins continued to focus on their nightclubs for a long while and became really famous figures in the swinging 60s London scene. They were always very sharply dressed, and that was a lot of Ronnie's influence, and ensured that their clubs were packed with both criminals and also celebrities, and they wanted to mix those elements together to kind of draw in a bigger crowd.
You know when the Grinch's heart grows like 3 times in size? Like
Is that happening to your clit?
Yeah. You said swinging 60s.
I know, I'm all about that.
This is so great.
Yeah. So they hung out with lords, socialites, actors, musicians, as well as all these criminals, boxers, things like that, athletes, you know.
What a good party.
Right? Some of their frequent customers were Judy Garland, Diana Dors, Barbara Windsor, and Frank Sinatra. 26-year-old Reggie met a 16-year-old named Frances Shea in the mid-60s and immediately fell madly in love with her.
The
It was
name
a
like
whirlwind road.
Francis.
Yeah, I know, right? Frances. So Franny is what they called her, and she was really strong, funny, a bit of a wild child, and she often stood up to Reggie, even though most other people had a healthy respect/fear for him, you know? And she was very bold, really gave him a lot of shit.
I love Franny. All
Right?
It's good.
Yeah.
Good for you.
So she loved Reggie, and she enjoyed going to his clubs dressed up super glamorously and kind of playing this starlet kind of role. Her family was against the relationship from the very start and didn't approve of the teenager dating a much older gangster.
Oh, in the 20s?
Yeah.
Weird. It's just because he's a gangster.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of it's that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's a 10-year age difference. It's a lot.
Not in the 20s.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
Not at all.
Yeah, that's true.
People have like 3 kids at 18.
Yeah, yeah. So Franny really wanted Reggie to leave the criminal life behind. He had these legit businesses, and she really wanted him to focus on that because he could make it just doing that. And the relationship kind of became really volatile, you know, pretty quickly. They were passionately in love, but also very passionately fought.
It's always like that, right? Like,
Yeah.
yep.
So even though they didn't always get along, they disagreed about a lot of things, they still decided to get married in 1965.
Because that fixes everything.
Oh, yeah, just put a ring on it. You good. On the day they were married, Franny's mother wore black to the wedding as if she was attending a funeral.
Good choice. I think that's just a good choice to wear to a wedding.
Pretty much wear black to everything.
Yeah, she's our kind of lady.
Yeah, I'm feeling that. So the newlyweds fought a lot, even early on in their marriage. Pretty much like they took a 2-week honeymoon, things were good, and then as soon as they got back, it was like gnarly. And one of the things that was difficult was that, of course, there was the struggle about his career, but also Franny struggled with depression. And so early on in their marriage, she started seeing psychiatrists and taking different pills and whatnot to try and see what could help her. So she was trying to get the right medication to treat her depression, but it seemed like it was never the right fit, and she continued to struggle. She would leave Reggie sometimes and was often suicidal. So even though the Kray twins were criminals, at this time, of course, like I said, many people still considered them to be more businessmen than gangsters. They knew that some of their dealings were not legal. However, the biggest thing that was getting attention was their nightclubs and those sort of things.
I mean, it's the intention behind the bad crimes they do. It's to fund good things.
I think so.
Right?
Or just put more money in their pockets, I think.
That's good
It's a
too.
greed. It's a greed thing. So it seemed to be a lot of like Reggie's goal was to keep this front up too, where people really saw him as a legit businessman, you know? So if he couldn't just go straight basically and be working in just regular legit business, he at least wanted people to think that's what he was doing.
Something tells me he'll never go straight.
Yeah, I know. I think that you're a good sleuth. I think you're going to be right on that one. So he really wanted to be a respected businessman, but it's like that was the second best thing to being a respected businessman was people believing that that's what you were, or at least forgiving you for your other crimes.
Oh, that was a gay joke.
Oh, yeah? Good for you. Ultimately, Reggie saw legit business as the only way to ensure long-term success. Ronnie, on the other hand, really wanted to be a gangster. Just straight up, that was his thing. He saw, like, he wanted to be Al Capone. He preferred violent crimes over business. He wanted to get his hands dirty, and he wanted to be feared and respected and known through the neighborhood for being a criminal.
And that's like the cool guy at the time, right? Like that kind of is when it was happening.
Yeah, yeah. So Ronnie got his way when the head of a rival gang named Charlie Richardson was busted in a police raid. Charlie, the head of the Richardson gang, was sentenced to 25 years for fraud, extortion, and assault, which left London basically open to be taken over by another gang. Ronnie led the charge to take power from the Richardsons, and he wanted to make the firm the dominating crime family in the area. So he led the charge against the Richardsons, kind of like a gang war revolt kind of thing. The police investigated the Krays on several occasions, but most people either had positive interactions with them or they knew the Krays were kind of less violent than the Richardsons. So they thought it was the lesser of two evils.
That's the weird, like a double-edged sword about being a police officer. Like you do all this work to get one person off, and then you're like, okay, we got rid of that person, but somebody else new is just going to come in, and then you just created a whole nother problem. So you kind of have to choose which is the less of the two evils.
Yeah. I mean, I think that there's always someone waiting to take someone else's spot,
just
you know?
hoping. Yeah, the cops will take them out.
Yep.
People will pay the cops to take that person out, to take out your rivals. Like,
true story.
Crazy.
So the other people in the neighborhood that weren't maybe on the Krays side or whatever, they knew the violence that the Krays were capable of because they were kind of getting their hands dirty. Some people viewed them in a positive light. The other people were like, well, I don't want to go against them, you know? So the Krays at that time were basically local legends in the area, but unknown outside of London until they were involved in a scandal that hit national news in 1964. The tabloid newspaper, the Sunday Mirror, ran an article about Ronnie Kray fucking a conservative politician named Robert Boothby, aka Lord Boothby. And at the time, of course, male homosexuality was still a criminal offense in the UK.
So a gangster got some high class ass. That's like a headline in their newspaper.
Yes.
Okay. Cool.
And beyond that, from what I understand, Ronnie was kind of supplying this lord with younger guys. So it wasn't just a romantic relationship. It was actually just kind of like 1930s grinder. So there was just like, he would have these parties at his house and invite this guy, the Lord Boothby, and then a bunch of his friends to party with maybe 20-year-olds or whatever. And these guys were like in their 50s and 60s.
Matchmaker.
Yeah, cool. Pretty much. This article basically was big time news, huge scandal, of course. And the Kray twins were thrust in the spotlight nationally and internationally. And they kind of became at least household names in their country, if not across seas. The twins threatened the writer and the staff at the Mirror, of course. And Lord Boothby threatened to sue the newspaper with the help of the Labour Party lawyers. So from both angles, both by fear of criminality and like bodily harm, and also just legally, it kind of became a little bit swept under the rug. Soon after, Ronnie and Reggie found themselves in court again, fighting more charges for shaking down a local club owner. Lord Boothby pulled some strings because they were in court and got them acquitted for these charges.
You need to be gangsters or rich as fuck, dude.
Right? I think the Lord didn't want to lose that dick and the connect, of course. So about a year later, in March of 1966, there was a shootout at a nightclub called Mr. Smith's between members of the Richardson gang and members of the firm. In the shootout, a Kray associate named Richard Hart was shot and killed. and many Richardson gang members were arrested that night on suspicion of being part of the murder.
The Richardsons killed Richard.
Yeah.
Lame.
Womp womp. The day after Richard Hart's death, Ronnie was out drinking when he heard that a man named George Cornell from the Richardson gang was drinking at a nearby pub called the Blind Beggar. George was not present at the club the night before at the shooting, so he was one of the few people that wasn't arrested. So it was just by a fluke that he was actually out. There was actually history between George and Ronnie, and most people knew that they were at least didn't like each other, if not, by some accounts, pretty much enemies.
Okay.
George didn't like Ronnie because he was gay, period.
Mm-hmm.
And Ronnie didn't like George because he was a homophobe. But beyond that, they had exchanged words. And George had called Ronnie a fat poof during a confrontation, which is the cutest homophobic slur I've ever heard.
What I call my vagina. My little fat poof.
So yeah, apparently a few months earlier, Christmas Day in 1965, they had words. They had exchanged words.
On
and people,
Christmas?
I know, right? How are you going to be homophobic on Christmas? So people had de-escalated the situation and it hadn't come to blows, but they were exchanging words. And of course, Ronnie was furious that he called him a fat poof.
Somebody just pull out some weed. Everything's going to be fine.
Yeah, poof it up.
Yeah, poof it up.
So upon hearing that this guy was at the Blind Beggar, Ronnie got in the car, got his driver and one other member of the firm, and went over to the Blind Beggar. Mm-hmm. Ronnie ran into the pub with his assistant, Ian Barry, trailing behind him. He walked straight up to George Cornell. Upon seeing Ronnie, George said, "Well, look who's here." And Ronnie said nothing, pulled up a gun, and shot him in the head in front of everyone inside the bar.
Who's the poof now?
I mean, it's still a murder, but he's homophobic, so I feel slightly less awful about it.
All you have to do is be okay with him sucking dick.
It has nothing to do with you. It's not in your mouth. It's not in your butt.
And you can
it's
just not
none
like
of
gay
your
people.
business.
Just don't open your fucking mouth about it. Like, or just don't. Like, some people you can't change.
If
you know?
you don't
cool.
have anything nice to say,
don't say it at all. And don't act out on it for sure.
Yeah.
Idiot.
You called the wrong person a fat poof.
He shouldn't have shot him, but still.
No way. Yeah, I just, it was bound to happen.
Yeah,
you know?
come on.
Just because he was clearly so, like, carrying this, waiting for an excuse, you know?
And he's a mobster and he has a crazy, like, reputation. Why would you fucking say something? Like, not to victim blame, but
No,
Jesus.
no. Well, the thing is, you know, like I said a little bit earlier, the Krays were seen as the lesser of two evils. The Richardsons were known for being a torture gang.
Oh, damn.
They would catch people and do completely awful things to them. So I do feel bad that someone got murdered.
Yeah.
But I feel like, you know, this person just thought they were invincible because they were just grabbing people off the street with his gang and, you know, really severely inflicting pain on them.
Yeah.
And eventually he met someone that, you know, just wanted to be as evil as him, basically.
Yeah,
you know?
That's what sucks about that whole thing, too, we were talking about with the cops, is that you think you get rid of one person, but there's another dude just waiting to fill that position.
Yeah. And there's another homophobe just right behind George.
He's like, I hate gays, too. I don't know why he's Texas, but that's it.
London, Texas. People get it confused all the time. So since the firm member, Ian Barry, that was trailing behind Ronnie, was not anticipating that his boss would do that, he kind of scrambled and tried to figure out what to do. And he decided to just fire 5 shots in the air and yell a warning to everyone in the bar not to report what they had just seen.
I thought he just slowly took like 4 steps backwards.
Just
like,
moonwalked into the fog. So the warning worked, and when people at the bar were questioned by police about what happened, they didn't bring up Ronnie's name at all.
He tripped and fell.
Yeah, right? Well, Ronnie who? I don't know. But of course, because a couple people, well, more than a couple people, had seen what happened in the bar, there were definitely whispers around town, but nobody was really willing to go on record about what they had seen.
Officer, it was Lonnie.
Right.
You heard Ronnie, it was Lonnie. It gets confused all the time.
It was a Bonnie, definitely. After the murder, Francis begged Reggie to go straight. And of course, he did not.
Aw, listen to Franny.
Yeah. She was like, this is the beginning of the end. Of course, things are escalating. And people saw this. Like, this was such a public murder
Yeah.
that, I mean, it's going to catch up to you. Maybe
Yeah.
not today, but it will.
Mm-hmm.
Months passed, and the Krays continued with business as usual, as if no murder had taken place. On the 12th of December in 1966, the Krays helped Frank Mitchell, the Mad Axeman, to escape from Dartmoor prison. Ronnie had become friends with Frank while they served time together in Wandsworth prison, and Frank Mitchell was a lifelong criminal. He had convictions, both violent and nonviolent, beginning at the age of 13. He'd once escaped prison and held a married couple hostage with an axe, which earned him his nickname of the Mad Axeman. In October of 1958, he was sentenced to life in prison for armed robbery. Frank believed that the authorities should review the case for parole, so Ronnie thought he would be doing him a favor by getting him out of prison. They had both hoped that this would bring attention to the case and media pressure would make it more likely that he would be up for parole. In the process, it would also legitimize the firm and the Krays, and they would be seen as a stronger presence in the criminal underworlds. Ronnie wore a disguise and snuck in to visit Frank to inform him of the plan to get him out of prison.
What kind of fucking disguise?
I know, right?
It has to be.
I have no idea. I really have no idea.
It's a shitty blonde wig. Grapes. Grapefruits in his shirt.
Or just watermelons, just go big or go home.
Bad heels. He's all wobbling. Some pearls and
Baby
smeared
deer walk.
lipstick. Yeah.
So while Frank was doing some work duty, like kind of on a chain gang, he asked a guard if he could take a break and go feed some horses that were nearby.
It's an option when you're on a chain gang?
That's what I was thinking. The guard gave him permission to go off in the direction that he was pointing. Once he was over by the horses, a car pulled up with 3 firm members, and they simply drove off. He hopped in the car, gone.
What else did you think? Hey, prisoner, go walk by those horses where you can easily jump on and escape by yourself.
I think he made the guard at ease by just being like, pony, and then skipping. Or maybe he just pulled a carrot out of his ass and the guard was so impressed that he keistered it that he's like, you can go over there. I'm just saying, it's possible.
That horse deserves that carrot, and you deserve to feed it to him.
You've earned it, buddy. It was 4 hours before any of the corrections officers even realized that the Mad Axeman had disappeared.
That's so stupid.
Yeah, right? Fucking bumbling idiots.
If they
like
didn't
3
get fired,
stooges of corrections
yeah.
officers.
I hope they got fired.
Once Frank was free, the Krays decided to keep him at a friend's house in East Ham. A manhunt ensued with 200 police officers and 100 Marines, but Frank was nowhere to be found. The media was in a frenzy, and there was public outcry for reevaluating the privileges that prisoners had, and especially for habitual violent offenders.
Number 1, fences.
Right. Seems pretty basic.
2, no horse breaks.
3, lube for carrots. So people were enraged that such a violent criminal was brought out from behind bars and allowed to just be out in public and work amongst basically their communities.
Yeah.
Frank wrote to a local paper demanding that his parole date be reevaluated.
After he escaped?
Yep. Yeah.
It's like, no, but seriously, you guys better let me off. I've been real good. Besides that one thing.
Just one.
Yeah.
It's only one. You guys are just being dramatic.
I fed the horse.
But authorities, of course, refused to negotiate with him. Frank was unwilling to turn himself in, and he was not allowed to leave the Kray's designated safe house, so of course he wouldn't risk being recognized. Frank Mitchell became restless pretty quickly, and his temper flared up against members of the firm who were trying to protect him and keep him safe.
Wait, he started arguing against them?
Yeah.
What an ass.
He was basically really insistent that he wanted to go outside. He's like, well, I didn't get free to basically just sit here in this room. And they're like, well, you can only be free if you sit here in this room, asshole.
I feel that too. That's a really hard thing because you don't want to turn on your friends who just helped you and you shouldn't do that. But fuck, I don't want to be in a room.
Yeah.
I didn't just stick a fucking carrot up my ass for no reason.
Yep, all for naught. He was a large man with mental health challenges, and members of the firm found him extremely difficult to control. Frank was insulted that Reggie had not visited him, and he was extremely agitated that he could not see his parents that actually lived pretty close to the safe house.
Well, yeah, because then they're going to turn your ass in. Parents kind of do. I mean, yeah.
It depends.
It
but
depends.
Either way,
it goes either way. Yeah.
What if their parents are being followed?
Totally.
You know? You never know. So the Krays decided, as a solution to him being restless, that they would bring him a woman. So, works every time.
Yeah. And a man? Both. Might
Yeah,
as well.
I mean,
You
just
never,
in case, here's a buffet table.
you never know what flavor he wants that
You
day.
never know. Or both.
Yeah.
Maybe you greedy like me. Hey, boo.
I like me a good P&V sandwich.
So they brought him a woman named Liza Prescott, and she came.
Take her name. Go back. Liza. Get me anything but Liza.
Would it be better if I said Lisa?
Yep. Perfect.
Lisa Prescott. And they brought her to visit in the safe house.
To blow him for hours.
Yeah, I mean, who isn't relaxed by that?
She's like, babe, let's just Netflix and chill, true crime and chill for like hours all day, every day, snuggle in bed.
True crime and chill in my mouth.
Yeah. It's a good way to keep someone indoors. Order pizza.
You really don't need prison bars as long as you have a mouth.
Yeah, seriously. A mouth, a bed.
It's very
TV.
persuasive.
Every time.
So, Lisa was a nightclub hostess that the Krays believed could help lift his spirits and keep him comfortable, and this backfired. Frank fell in love with Lisa, and soon she was just another reason that he wanted to be let out of the safe house.
Stage 5 virgin clinger.
Clinger. It's believed that he became so unruly that the Krays and their associates decided to kill him.
He's just demanding blowjobs every 20 seconds.
Right? They're like, nope. They informed Frank that they were taking him to a safer location in the countryside. A van was brought to the flat to transport him, and he demanded that Lisa come with them. They convinced him that it was safer if she went separately so he could go first and then she could come later so that they didn't get caught.
Yeah.
Once he was in the van, several members of the firm pulled out guns and shot him.
You only need one gun.
It's overkill.
Yeah. But
I don't know.
How did Liza feel about this?
Yeah, nobody knows.
Yeah, that's weird, because if she loved him, she'd actually care, but obviously not.
I mean, her mouth was tired, so maybe she was relieved.
I got lockjaw, dude. Get him the fuck out of here.
I'm not a snake, man. Knock it off.
BJ Gold.
So after shooting him, they tied up his body, they weighed it down, and they dumped it in the English Channel.
So mob.
I know, right? So British. With the increasing whispers about the Kray twins going around town, Franny put more pressure on Reggie to leave the criminal underworld behind. But Reggie, of course, did not go straight. So with each incident, Franny just became more insistent and really grew tired of it, you know?
Yeah, did you see what happened to Frank? When he wouldn't
Right?
leave, when he wanted to leave a room?
So Franny decided to leave, and she went to stay with her brother. And she struggled to get her life kind of back together. Reggie begged her to come home and eventually came to visit her with plane tickets and asked her to basically leave London with him. Let's go somewhere and get away and never come back,
Good
kind of
job.
thing.
Fuck yeah.
On June 7th,
Sorry.
on June 7th, 1967, Franny's niece was at a sleepover, so 23-year-old Frances took an overdose of pills and laid down on her niece's bed and passed away.
What? Why didn't you take the ticket?
She knew it wouldn't work out.
It'll work out for a fucking month in a different country. Are you crazy? With
It'll
fucking
work out for a shopping spree or two.
Mai Tai on the beach with a little fucking umbrella?
Umbrella?
Yeah. Some
No,
cheap
yeah,
shopping?
she just really had no hope that he would ever turn it around.
Why would you do it near
I
your
know.
niece, you fucking jerk?
Yeah, it was.
She's gotta find you?
No. The next morning, her brother brought her a cup of tea, and he thought that she was still sleeping. So he basically put the tea next to her in bed, and still hours later, she wasn't up, and she had been going through depression, so he kind of, assumed that she was sleeping a little bit more than usual,
Yeah.
was less active, because she was kind of a little bit down and out of it, and that was kind of typical at this time that she wouldn't be less active.
It wasn't out of the norm, so.
Yeah. So, of course, he came back a couple hours later and he went to basically get the tea and bring it back to the kitchen, the dish at least, and the tea was still full and cold. And then he looked and investigated a little bit more closely and found that she had passed away. Before she died, Franny wrote that she wanted her maiden name, Frances Shea, on her gravestone. But Reggie ensured that she was buried as a Kray in his family
No!
plots. Yeah.
Oh, I got the chills. That's not cool.
Yeah.
That's awful. You did the exact opposite of what the dead wish.
Just respect her wishes in death. Like, things didn't work out together in life. Just give her this thing.
He's so fucking selfish. Holy
yeah.
shit.
Yep.
That's cray. Fucking A.
So Reggie was heartbroken and he struggled to cope with the grieving process. He didn't handle it gracefully. Not that there's any way to handle that gracefully. It's devastating, but he definitely went off the deep end. Just a few months after Franny passed away, the Krays hired a minor member of the firm named Jack the Hat McVitie to kill a rival for £1,000. I forgot to convert money. I don't know. Money means nothing to me. It's the 30s, you know,
I'm
60s,
really good at math,
whatever it is.
So I did that in my head already. It's like $2.
You're so good at that. That's impressive. They paid Jack half the money in advance, but Jack failed to complete the murder. It was kind of known that Jack was a bit of a fuck up. He often drank too much and did too many drugs.
Not the hat.
Right? You never would have thought it. So the twins were furious that he hadn't completed the murder, but everybody else was kind of like, Jack never does anything right. What made you think that he would get this right?
Why the fuck would you give Jack money?
Right. In the first place.
Yeah.
No. So Ronnie encouraged Reggie to punish Jack for his failure because this wasn't the first time that Jack had fucked up. Everybody else saw this as a way to blame the Krays and be like, you shouldn't have given him this job. But the Krays saw it as fuck Jack.
Yeah.
So Jack was invited to a party by a Kray associate, but as he walked in, Reggie pointed a gun in his head and pulled the trigger twice. The gun malfunctioned. So Reggie grabbed a knife and stabbed Jack repeatedly in the face and the abdomen until he died of his injuries. After he was already dead, by many accounts, he was clearly not moving. Reggie still continued, and he plunged the knife into his neck and then started to twist it.
Ugh.
So he did not stop stabbing even when it was clear to everyone that Jack had already passed away.
Bar of Cauldron.
Witnesses said that at one point his liver came out and was later completely out of his body and had to be flushed down the toilet. But it's unclear if that's kind of a crazy rumor.
The fuck would you flush it down a toilet?
I don't get that at all.
Tampons don't work. Why would you?
Right? It'd be a plumbing nightmare.
Ugh.
But that was the rumor.
Mm-hmm.
3 firm members helped clean up the scene, and they got rid of the body. The problem was, as they were trying to dispose of Jack, they ran out of gas while attempting to move his body towards water. So they left it in a churchyard and fled the scene. He was just in a car, just a dead body. It's like Weekend at Bernie's, but with better fashion. The Krays were furious when they found out that the body was just left there. So they ordered that the body be retrieved and then dumped in the English Channel.
Ew, the English Channel has to have. Don't people swim that?
I don't know, actually.
They do.
Oh, yeah.
They definitely do. You know how many fucking dead bodies are in there? Jesus.
That's any body of water, really.
Ugh.
So the murder of Jack McVitie was the event that started turning many people against the Krays. The public, as well as a lot of firm members, were upset by the murder and didn't agree that this kind of petty criminal that was known as a fuck-up should be punished so harshly, you know?
He owed me money. What the fuck are you talking? Mind
The
your own
end.
business.
Yeah, people no longer saw the Krays as local Robin Hoods, and they began to believe that what had happened to Jack McVitie could happen to them, you know? Yeah.
Stupid.
So Scotland Yard reopened an investigation into the Krays, and Leonard Nipper Reid put together a murder squad to build a case against the twins.
Murder Squad.
Right? That's what we should have been called.
Yeah.
By the end of 1967, Inspector Reid had compiled some evidence of criminal activity, but nothing really concrete enough and nothing big enough for a murder charge, which was the ultimate goal, of course. He decided to arrest the Krays and many of their associates on smaller charges in hopes of making it more likely that they would flip on each other and more likely that the public would feel safe that they could actually come forward because everyone was in custody, you know? So Reid was kind of banking on getting witnesses through this tactic. He interviewed all the members of the firm and made each of them offers to cooperate in exchange for lighter sentences, of course. In the meantime, while he was trying to put together his case, the Krays were trying to put together their plan to get the murder charges off of them.
Lawyer.
Well, that's a good plan. The Krays decided that Scotch Jack Dixon would confess to the murder of George Cornell.
Wait, that guy's first name is Scotch?
Oh, no, that was his nickname, I think.
Oh,
His
okay.
name was Jack Dixon,
Okay.
but I think they nicknamed him Scotch, I believe, if I
Okay.
remember correctly. So they wanted him to confess to George's murder, and then Ronnie Hart was supposed to take the fall for Jack McVitie's murder. And Albert Donahue was supposed to say that he killed Frank Mitchell so that they could get each of the charge onto one of the firm members and walk away. Albert Donahue told the twins directly they could go fuck themselves.
No.
He's like, I'm not taking the fall for murder I didn't commit.
Yeah.
You know? Albert then asked his mother to contact Inspector Reid and set up an interview.
They go, hey, this isn't America, bro.
After Albert, Ronnie Hart was the next one to flip on the twins, and he told Reid everything he knew. Testimony from the 2 firm members' informants provided enough evidence that they could charge Reggie with Jack McVitie's murder. Reid then turned his attention to proving that Ronnie had murdered George Cornell. They tracked down the bartender. They called her a barmaid. I'm going to start calling you a barmaid.
Barmaid.
They tracked down the barmaid from the blind beggar who had witnessed the whole thing, of course, and was one of the few people that they could prove was there, you know, unlike just basically patrons where it's hearsay that they were at that location. and they wanted to find her as a witness, and they offered her witness protection in exchange for her testimony. She agreed and gave a statement about what she had seen that night. There was not enough evidence to prove that the Krays had murdered Frank Mitchell, so Inspector Reed decided to proceed with the 2 murder cases, and then maybe people would come forward later. The trials began when the lawyer's defense focused simply on denying all allegations, and they tried to discredit all of the witnesses. And of course, because they were also gangsters, a lot of them.
It was easy.
Yeah, it's just poking holes in the associates of the Kray or the Richardsons or whoever, you know.
Yeah.
In March 1969, the twins were sentenced to life with a non-parole period of 30 years. Their brother Charlie was in prison for 10 years for his part in the activities, because by all accounts, he was kind of an accountant, kind of a member of the firm, but definitely not as boss as the twins.
Mm-hmm.
During sentencing, Judge Melford Stevenson, Jesus. Melford said, "In my view, society has earned a rest from your activities." Sounds like you're on your high horse, dude.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Only a judge.
But I feel like a lot of judges started saying that afterwards. Just like, you know, your community needs a rest from you or whatever,
Yeah.
you know? I feel like that became kind of a thing.
Like, do your fucking job, bro. Don't look at me. Jesus.
Don't come at me with that.
I protected the community. What did you do?
I'm Robin Hood.
Yeah. Was.
Robin Kray.
Former Robin Kray.
At the time, Ronnie was dating a woman named Monica for the past few years and called her the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. Ronnie was arrested before he had the chance to marry Monica, and she moved on to marry one of Ronnie's ex-boyfriends. They continued to write, and Ronnie was very forward about his love for her, even though she married this dude.
He said, "Bitch, you beautiful."
The thing was, she reciprocated his feelings and was just like, well, you're going to be in jail forever, so I'm going to be with this guy. But she was very clear about being in love with him, too.
All right. So, I mean, she's got to get hers, too, right? He's probably fucking dudes in jail.
Yeah, of course.
Totally.
The 59 letters between them were auctioned off in 2010. I don't know the price, though, but I'm curious. I'm sure it's out there. Maybe I just didn't dig enough, but I think that's interesting.
I wonder if it was all smut or were they like...
Right? It was just dick pictures, like drawings, like he's doing a still life portrait of his dick. It was early dick pics.
The last letter was just a portrait of him sucking a dick.
Right.
The end.
The ultimate dick pic. When they were first incarcerated, the Kray twins tried to establish dominance, of course, in their prison, and they were kept together. Mm-hmm. They fought anyone that didn't immediately basically show respect and bow down. Eventually, the twins started to get on each other's nerves like they always did, and they started to fight each other. It was their pattern.
The knee.
I will not bend the knee. King of the North. Ronnie's violent outburst and obvious mental health challenges got him moved to Broadmoor Psychiatric Facility again. Mm-hmm. The Krays' reputation and wealth meant they could convince other inmates to be their servants, basically, and maids and whatever else they needed, they could get.
Yeah, here's $5. Get me a candy bar and clean this shit up.
Right. So in jail, Reggie had that, and also Ronnie had it at the psychiatric facility.
Yeah.
Both the Kray twins' prison records showed a lot of incidents of violence toward inmates and staff. After Ronnie was moved, the other inmates saw Reggie as an easy target, basically.
Aww.
So there were people that respected him and, you know, did things for him because they knew there was money involved. But there was a lot of other people that weren't concerned with money, and it was just about reputation, respect, winning, whatever, you know? So they retaliated. They got back at them for the violence they inflicted or just because they wanted to prove someone was weak, you know? It was also kind of used as this argument because Reggie was seen as the less violent one, but because his his incarceration was marred with a lot of violent offenses. Historians basically were like, well, this is proof that both Reggie and Ronnie wanted to be violent and wanted to be gangsters and wanted to be criminals. Because a lot of times historians will say that Ronnie was the driving force behind that and that Reggie was like the clean cut, nice guy kind of, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
but
they
they
were
both
two
have,
opposites of a coin,
but they
basically.
have records. They're both
Yeah.
pretty, they're twins. I
They
mean, how
both were
awful.
violent. They both murdered.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just think it's interesting to point out because a lot of stories make it seem like they were opposites when in fact they were both violent criminals, you know?
And if they were so opposite, they wouldn't be so close.
Right? Yeah. In 1985, officials at Broadmoor Hospital discovered a business card for Ron Kray for a protection business called Kray Enterprises, which provided security for stars and other wealthy businessmen. Ron, Reggie, and Charlie were operating a highly successful business together and even lending the Kray name to various security firms for a fee
While in jail?
while in jail.
Oh, man.
So they had a staff of people that directly worked for them and dealt with high profile clients, but they also had maybe like private investigators or other protection places that were like, can we put the Kray name on our business and say that we are your associates or your partners or something? And they earned money that way because people were like, people will take us more seriously if we're associated with the Krays.
Fuck a rap album. Start an empire.
Right?
That's great.
So the Krays even provided security for Frank Sinatra in 1985 when he went to the Wimbledon Championships from prison. They organized his security.
And they knew him too.
Yeah.
Yeah, crazy.
So Ronnie went on to marry twice while in prison. First was Elaine Mildener in 1985 when he was at Broadmoor. They got married in the chapel at the psychiatric facility, which is cute. They divorced in 1989, and he went on to marry Kate Howard, who he divorced in 1994. It's a great time for divorces. I
Yeah.
could imagine her like getting a convertible, wearing something that looked like a bedspread, and just going out to clubs, you know?
Cute.
Ronnie died at Broadmoor of a heart attack on March 17th, 1995, at the age of 61.
St. Patty's Day.
When Reggie died, flowers were sent from Barbara Windsor, The Who's lead singer Roger Daltrey, and also from Morrissey.
Because he did security for them, or they were admirers?
Just fans, I guess?
What the
I don't know.
fuck?
There was also a wreath that was believed to be sent from the American Mafia next to a photo of Manhattan. And the wreath read, "In deep respect from your friends in New York."
These are my most likable killers on this entire fucking show, dude.
Yeah, I feel like we definitely have some sort of admiration for mobsters, you know?
Yeah,
We just
they're
see
so
them as movie
cool.
characters, but I mean,
But
these
not
are
violent.
these are murders.
Yeah,
you
these
know?
are definite murders.
Straight up.
Like torturers.
Yeah.
I think I like them more because they're bi. Honestly, they're bi gangsters. Now name
I'm
any
going to
other.
be really transparent with you. It definitely earns them points in my book. More so than the mobster thing.
Yeah.
You know? So Reggie became a born-again Christian while in jail.
A bi born again
Boo.
Christian?
Yeah,
I wonder how that went.
Yeah. In 1997, Reggie married Roberta Jones, who he met because she was working on a film about the Krays. Their older brother, Charlie Kray, was released from prison in 1975 after serving 7 years, but he was sentenced again in 1997 for conspiracy to smuggle cocaine in an undercover drug sting. Charlie died in prison of natural causes on April 4th, 2000. On August 26th of 2000, after serving more than the recommended 30 years that they were sentenced to, Reggie was released on compassionate grounds after he was diagnosed with inoperable bladder cancer.
Is that what they call it when you spend too much time in jail? Is compassionate grounds?
No.
Oh, it's the cancer thing.
Yep.
Okay, I thought it was just really like, oops, we forgot you were here. You should have been out like fucking weeks ago, dude.
It's just when they say sorry and open the door. That's it. Yeah, it's compassionate grounds are when someone has basically an illness that means that they're going to be passing away soon, so they
Okay.
have a little bit of time to spend with their family.
Oh shit, do we do that here? We don't do that here.
I don't
I
know.
wonder. That's a good question.
I'm I'm pretty sure most states we don't,
We
but I feel like I
don't,
shouldn't
yeah.
say that out loud.
No, man, people die in jail from cancer all the time.
But I definitely saw, I don't remember the name of it, but there was a documentary about that,
Okay.
about prisoners that they would train to be medical assistants
Hmm.
in basically the hospitalization, like the ward of the hospital when someone's about to die.
Oh,
You know what I'm talking about?
hospice?
Hospice.
Hmm.
Yes. Jesus Christ, why can't I think of that word? So they were training inmates to be part of the hospice team to take care of other inmates that were about to pass away.
Crazy.
So after seeing that, I can only imagine not every state, if any states at all,
Yeah.
have that.
We just put them in their own separate room.
But I definitely know what it means, so I know that I've seen it in other cases before. So Reggie stayed with his wife in a suite at the Townhouse Hotel in Norwich, and 8 weeks later, Reggie died in his sleep. 10 days after that, Reggie was buried beside his brother Ronnie in Chingford Mount Cemetery. The end.
That was good. They're likable and hateable at the same time. More
Yeah,
likable.
I feel like we in America idolize mobsters and
Hmm.
gangsters with just films and TV, and there's this switch in our brain where we're just like, yeah, I just like these guys. I know they're murderers, but I like
Hmm.
them. So what if you wake up next to a horse head? You know?
Yeah, I know, right?
Walk it off. But yeah, I just found it really interesting, the dynamic between them and the differences, but also the similarities, but how people always wanted to portray them as different.
Yeah.
But they went down the same path, They clearly built this thing together, you know?
We like that a lot too, even with like heads of cartels and heads of this or heads of like the heroin thing in the 70s. Like we really like big people like that, especially when they're American and they're self-made.
Yeah.
We love rags to riches.
It's true. I think that that is the element that people are fascinated or gravitate to, but I think it's just knowing someone started at the bottom and then
Like
worked their way up and
totally
became extremely not only powerful but rich.
a boss.
And it makes
Yeah.
us feel like we could achieve something,
I could be a
like
boss too.
you are a
I'm
boss in my
bossy.
eyes.
Yeah.
So that's Twins Part 1, the Kray Twins.
Shit was cray. It was
It
good.
was. Oh yeah.
That was great.
So, okay, before we leave, we wanted to remind you to check out our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We have updates about episodes coming out and what's going on with merch and links and cool memes, all sorts of shit.
Yeah. It's the episode before Halloween.
Yes.
So excited.
So everyone have a happy Halloween also.
And get
I forgot to wish everybody a happy Halloween because I'm kind of an asshole.
I'm gonna catch the diabetes from some candy.
I really hope you do.
I'm
I think
gonna.
you should achieve your dreams.
I'm so close. We had a bag of M&Ms at work and just handfuls.
Oh man.
Handfuls.
I had no self-control.
Oh, they were old. I didn't tell you they're expired.
What?
Well, that's what the bag said, but my mouth said different.
Never believe the bag. Always believe your
Yeah.
mouth. I mean, I don't trust your mouth, but I believe you should. So we would appreciate it if you would also leave us reviews and subscribe on iTunes or any other platform that you're listening on.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a little bit late for timestamps, but just to remind you, if you ever want to skip the violent parts, we always have timestamps in the show notes.
There was none in this show. That show was
That really was, it was weak sauce.
No, it wasn't weak sauce. It was just different. It was totally different.
Yeah, it was a little bit more tame.
Thanks to Jowskis and
Yes, our Patreon support.
I'm gonna remember the names.
Okay.
The first one. I fucking too much weed.
So this week we want to thank our Patreon supporters, Brittany, A. Janowski,
As you been asked.
That A. Nasty,
Nasties.
Mallory, and Aaron Cox.
You didn't add Cox in the
I
beginning.
know, but I just got so excited about it when I saw it.
Hey, Cox.
Hey, Cox.
Hey, Cox.
So
was good.
thank
Thanks,
you so
guys.
much for your support on Patreon. We'll have bonus episodes over there and a little bit of merch on our Patreon. So if you want to become a patron, then check out our link in the show notes and on our social media.
Yeah.
If you're also interested in bigger merch items like t-shirts, phone cases, mugs,
Dirty
stuff
underwear.
like that, used panties, locks of our hair from wherever you choose. You
Nipple.
can head over to Threadless. So it's threadless.murderdictionarypodcast and get some merch items. And of course, those links are in the show notes and the social media. So I think that's pretty much it. And we could go...
Spooky true crime and chill. Spooky.
I can get a fear boner and just plunge it into your back and make you mad uncomfortable while we true crime and chill.
I'm going to eat M&Ms out of your hair like a little baby bird.
We could finish watching Scream like we began last night and didn't finish, and I could do really amazing impressions
That'd be good. You're
of
really
Rose
good with those.
McGowan and Drew Barrymore. It's kind of amazing.
I'm not going to do it like a bird. I'm going to do it like a monkey. You know, where they pick the
Oh,
bugs.
yeah.
Yeah, that's better.
Yeah, that's much better. I'll get a scalp massage.
Scream and chill?
True crime.
Scream, true crime and chill. We just did the true crime.
Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye. I'm just going to whisper Jeffrey Dahmer in your ear while we watch Scream.
Oh,
That'll
man.
be the truth.
That's going to make a boner huge.
Bye. Bye.
Buckle up, because Metro is bringing you the best deal in wireless. Switch to Metro and get your choice of 2 awesome free phones from top brands like Samsung and LG with huge HD screens and tons of memory for all your pics and videos. So hurry into Metro and get your awesome free phones only at Metro. Plus sales tax and activation fee. Requires porting of eligible